In the fight against AIDS, one of our most powerful weapons is education, teaching people how to protect themselves and others against infection. But how do you get the information to the people who need it most? And how do you make it stick? Find out next on AIDS Vision. Hi, welcome to AIDS Vision. I'm your volunteer host, Allison Arngrim, and today on AIDS Vision we're going to be talking about a new educational program from AIDS Project Los Angeles. It's the STARR program, and that has 2 R's in it. And with me today is John Finck, who is the STARR coordinator.
Hi, Allison.
Welcome to AIDS Vision.
Thanks for having me here.
Now, John, tell us what this is. First off, what does STARR stand for, S.T.A.R.R.?
This is a mouthful. STARR stands for Skills for Teen AIDS Risk Reduction. Not teen age, which most people think is over the phone, but teen AIDS risk reduction.
So technically it would be S.F.T.A.R.R., but that wouldn't work.
Something like that, yeah.
So, but it is specifically teen AIDS risk reduction.
Right. It's a 4-hour workshop that targets 12 to 19-year-olds, and it gives them basic information about HIV and AIDS, and it goes a little bit beyond that to discuss issues of self-esteem, choices, decision-making, goal-setting, and communication skills.
Now, there's been a lot of workshops, talking about AIDS and AIDS 101, as they say, and telling people how it's transmitted, how it's not. But this is a little more intensive, and this is a 4-hour workshop?
Mm-hmm. 4 hours.
And now, is this 4 hours all at once? Is this over several days? How do you do this?
Well, logistically, it's kind of hard to understand, but generally we do it in junior highs and high schools across the county. And a teacher, for example, a health or science teacher, will call us and say, I need to do my HIV/AIDS education. Can you come do it? I say, yeah, it's 4 hours. How many classes you got? And they say, well, I need all 5 classes to go through it. So that means that we would need to go 4 days in 1 week and do the same thing 5 times each day. So day 1, topic A would be 5 times. Day 2, topic B would be 5 times, and so forth.
So you're blanketing the schools with this, is
Basically,
what you're doing. If you have to stay there all day to do it, you'll do it.
They are inundated with AIDS information.
So with 4 hours then of training, this isn't the little Passover 15-minute thing that kids get where they just go over the information, say, well, here it is, don't do this. You're doing a more intensive workshop where you're really dealing with the issues that are important to them. When you talk about self-esteem and choices, what kind of things do you talk about? Well,
you bring up an important point. We pick up where earlier HIV/AIDS education presentations left off. We found that people were learning the basic information, and we had a pretty well-informed general public. I know a lot of people would debate that, but based on our pre-tests that we administer, we can see that people come in knowing a lot of the basic facts. But we realized that it wasn't enough. People were knowing the basic information, people were doing the same job that I do and still getting infected. And, what could be the reason for that? Where's the slip in the thinking?
Because it wasn't meaning anything to them.
Right.
It was just words.
You can tell someone the 5 fluids, and they can know those like the back of their hand. But if they're with someone who is pressuring them to do something they don't want to do, especially someone who says they love them, for example, it becomes a whole new ball game. So we added onto this workshop and tried to get people to think beyond the facts. Okay, you've got this information now. What do you do? What do you do if you're feeling really bad one day? What do you do if you got a bad grade on a test and you go home and you got in trouble, or your parents yell at you, or you just feel cruddy all the way around? Maybe you got bad acne. Then your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, or friend, if you're talking about drugs or something like that, says, "You look so pretty," or "You look really hot.
That would work
closer."
for me. I mean, if I'm depressed and my face is breaking out and someone says, "You look wonderful," this is going to work on me. This works on most people I know.
You're right.
So what you're saying is the kind of AIDS information where even when you feel hideous and someone is offering to make you beautiful, you still remember that you can become infected.
For example,
these things don't go out of your head at the crucial moment.
Right. Our workshop is supposed to give you those basic facts and then help you take them one step further. Now that you know these things, you need to make a decision for yourself. And following through with that decision is the hardest part of the whole thing, of staying safe and staying uninfected. You need to know how to discuss those facts with your partners or the people that might be pressuring you. And just generally making the whole subject of HIV, AIDS, sex, drugs, sexuality, all less taboo, because people won't talk about it with the people they need to most.
Now, when you say the basic information, the 5 fluids, you're still covering the basics with them. What do you tell them about transmission, about the bodily fluids that do transmit the virus? And go over that for the people watching.
Okay. Well, I could break down the workshop really quickly. Day 1, we go in, we administer a pre-test and behavior survey, and we define HIV and AIDS and what the difference is.
So this is where you find out how much they already may know or not know, if they've been watching the news or
Right.
what they've picked up.
Gather their general perceptions of the disease, too. We get a lot of myths, we get a lot of correct things. It's a chance to dispel some of the myths, but kind of find out where we are, what ground we're on. Okay. Day 2 is the fun day. That's the controversial day, where we take our little kits in like we've been doing for years, and that information has basically stayed the same. We do the condom demonstrations. We talk about, we have a transmission game where we have the students tell us with posters around the room and cards that we've pre-printed what are high risk, no risk, and low risk fluids and activities and general concerns.
That's the day you talk about sex and everybody screams and carries on and giggles and has a good time.
That's the big day. Sometimes, depending on the teacher and the attitude of the class age, we have a condom relay race, too.
A condom relay race.
Right, where the kids actually, if everything's kosher, they get a chance to compete with one another in a fun activity, but something that will actually teach them. Because it's one thing to hear about using condoms all the time, or even reading it, but actually putting one on a model is something else. And
but you know, as goofy as that might sound to someone, a condom relay race, doesn't that also, because people are having a good time, do they sort of forget that they're really learning something important? It sort of like takes it out of that sense that they're having too much fun to realize they're being told something important?
Yeah.
It sinks in that way?
You know, you hit on a good point, but that's one of the things where we can rely on our volunteer facilitators to keep in check. And we have a core of excellent volunteer facilitators, which I guess we'll be talking about more a little bit, but these people manage to make the activity fun but worthwhile. It doesn't get out of hand, and the kids do walk away, students walk away having something from it that they can apply whenever they need to for the rest of their lives.
But I think that's also good to keep in mind that, you know, some of the people you're talking to are kids, some are older, some are younger, some almost are kids, that there still needs to be a sense of some entertainment and fun in the workshop, because it's very hard to absorb information that's about life and death, that is terrifying. The tension is so high, there has to be a way to break that tension.
Well, you meet all kinds. I mean, you meet all kinds. We have students in our classes who have lost several relatives to the disease, and we usually count on them to answer most of the questions and rein in their cohorts who may not have ever had to deal with the disease directly, not having realized how close it might be to them. So, yeah, we get the jokers, but we also get the kids who realize the importance of it, even in 7th grade, you know.
So are you seeing a higher knowledge level amongst junior high and high school age students already?
More than I would expect, but definitely not enough. I mean, and I don't think it'll ever be enough, but all we can do is keep plugging away, you know.
But it's starting to improve a little, because I notice sometimes I talk to people and it seems that although they don't have really a full grasp, the base knowledge is a little higher than it used to be.
Well, the CDC has recently published reports, don't quote me on this, but I know that pregnancy and STD rates have gone down a little bit, and that's believed to be largely due to risk reduction programs such as STARR.
So because of this education, they're getting educated about other stuff.
If they're using condoms, then they're not getting pregnant and not
getting
transmitting
the
other
STDs.
diseases. Yeah.
Well, we have some footage of an actual workshop of one of your workshops with you and the other facilitators, some of whom are going to be on the show later, and we have tape of this, and we can show this right now.
Terrific.
My name is Greg Payton. I am a teacher at Southgate Middle School, the biggest school in the country. We have 4,000 students here. I teach 7th grade classes, ages 12 and 13. I think students really benefit from the program because it opens up their eyes and exposes them to things they've never seen before or heard before about AIDS and all the myths that go with it. Oh, I think the program's great. I mean, for 4 days, they get to learn about the things that they never realized that was out there, especially about condom use, the myths that go with it, the things, how you get it, how it's transmitted, and they really open up and they're aware now that it's no longer just the gay or the lesbian or the homosexual, that everybody gets it and that everybody's exposed to it.
Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Any questions about HIV or AIDS? Okay, do you catch AIDS? No. What do you get? Yeah. Listen, what are the 5 fluids that put us at risk for transmitting HIV? Listen to me one. Breast milk. Good.
Pre-cum?
Pre-cum or pre-seminal fluid. Blood. Good, that's excretion. Semen. Good. Okay, let's look at them all. Blood, breast milk, vaginal secretions, semen, pre-seminal fluid, or pre-cum. Okay? Can I get HIV from saliva?
No.
Can I get it from tears?
No.
What about sweat?
No.
Good.
And she was trying to convince him to have sex even though he didn't have a condom. If she had been sober, she might not have been so willing. She might not have been wanting, but it impaired her judgment. Remember when we did the no risk, low risk, high risk? Yeah. Remember how we had pot and alcohol under low risk? Yeah. Even though it doesn't contain HIV, it's something that can impair our judgment and might make us do something that we otherwise wouldn't do. Okay? For the last 4 days, we've been talking about topics maybe you're not comfortable with talking about. Maybe you've never talked about sex, sexuality, drugs with your parents, with your friends. Well, this is a way to make it more comfortable for you. It's not like in one day you're going to be absolutely comfortable in talking to your parents and your friends, but it's a step. As Coral said to me, I hope you don't mind, when Coral said to me, she was like, oh, I'm shy, I don't know what to say. And I just said, just pretend that you really did have to tell your father. And, experience those emotions because they're real. And it's just a way for us to kind of break through those taboo subjects that people don't want us to talk about and hopefully make you better informed and more comfortable with saying no to things that you don't want to do, insisting that, that you protect yourself and make the decisions that you want to make and not feel pressured into doing something that you don't want to do. Okay? And the same thing with the drugs. I mean, you guys were, like, oh, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to say. Just imagine that you were in that situation, and maybe you've never been in that situation before, but you might be in that in the future. Okay?
Okay. My name is Ian Wells. I'm actually a 7th grade and 8th grade science teacher at Southgate Middle School, the largest middle school in the country, 4,000 students in Southgate, California, which is an inner city suburb of Los Angeles. I think that the STARR program has a lot of good things to offer. Some of the things that are being offered right now is a lot of information about AIDS and how the HIV virus can, in fact, be contracted. It's part of the human maturity program that we have at our school. And it's fit quite nicely into our program. A volunteer comes for 4 days and basically goes through starting with a pre-test and finding out how much information students in fact do know about AIDS and the HIV virus. And it's rather interesting to see that our kids, even though AIDS is in fact prevalent in the community, don't know very much about it, and it's been neat to have people who are experts and have statistics. I asked for some statistics and current information, and the STARR program brought the information in the next day. So there have definitely been a lot of benefits. the number one benefit in my mind is the volume of information that our students have in fact received.
Jolie Sharton, Media Relations Specialist for AIDS Project Los Angeles. Today I am visiting the STARR program doing outreach at Southgate Middle School. And there was role-playing on what would happen if you had to tell your folks you were HIV positive. What would be scary about it? I saw role-playing on how to say no, how to take care of your own behavior. From having done prevention education before, and from having done education on trying to get people tested, it seems kind of scary sometimes to want to or need to talk to people that are 11, 12, 13. But I think what we're finding in communications and in advertising is that people know how HIV is contracted, but they still don't take the behavior to not transmit HIV. These kids were pretty hip. These kids knew what was going on. These kids definitely weren't too young. And when I saw the people in the classroom answering questions, they knew what was up. They knew the 5 fluids that have to touch each other, as it were. They knew what the barriers were trying to stop from the fluids that contain HIV to go back and forth. They knew the difference between anonymous, confidential, and all the different kinds of testing. They knew the expense involved in testing. This is a great thing. Think about what they're doing before they do it. Think about what will happen with certain kinds of behavior. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens in this generation and other generations.
So, John, who were all of those people out there at Southgate? The largest school, did you talk to like all 4,000 people?
No, but we may, because we've been there so often, and the response has been so incredible. We're kind of contracted at Southgate now to do all of their 7th graders.
You have a permanent gig.
Practically.
Now, you've brought some of your trainer facilitators with you.
Yeah, well, in the video, we saw Steve Eng. He was the tall guy, talking to the 7th graders, and we also saw Pamela Brannon, who we've brought here today. Pamela is one of our flawless STARR facilitators, as well as a co-worker of mine, and she specializes in 7th grade. They take to her like a mother hen, and over here we've got Ronnell Raganas, who is a veteran of 10th grade, 11th grade, and 7th grade. He's been at Southgate as well as Westchester High School, and he is one of our flawless STARR facilitators. Yeah.
Thanks, flawless facilitators.
Pretty smooth.
Yeah, Pamela, I've talked to you before about education, and you've been on the show before, but this is yet another thing you're doing, and I mean, all I can say is in the spare time that you do not possibly have, what possessed you to do this?
Well, how I got involved in AIDS work was through volunteering. And I did the buddy program for many years and took a break from it when I started working at APLA, and actually thought I would go through the STARR training as sort of a monitor, not just sort of like view it, but not think about getting involved as a volunteer.
For professional reasons.
Exactly. And halfway into day one, I'm like, of the training, of a 3-day training, I knew I wanted to do it. I knew it would be a crunch with work and what little spare time I do have. But after you go through the training and then you get out there and you actually are interfacing with these kids, I mean, it's so rewarding. It makes what I do all the more valuable.
And how did you get involved in this, Ronnell?
Well, I had a little bit of interest in regards to giving back to the community. And when someone mentioned to me, you should check out APLA, I thought, okay, I will. And I went to one of Pamela's orientation, and there was one that they were introducing called the STARR program, and it was still being put together. And I was sort of interested because they said, you go to schools and you teach kids at a high school and junior high range. Well, I have a 13-year-old brother who is going to school right now and being involved with other kids and knowing other kids who are having sex already. And I thought, you know what, I really need to get the message out there because my brother talks to me about this kind of thing.
So you're hearing what's going on from your own brother and that it was time.
That's right. And so I decided, you know what, not only him, but I also want to be able to educate kids at that age range because no one is talking to them about this. They hear it, among themselves and not get the correct information. And sometimes they'll come back to me and I tell them, that's a myth, that's not true. And when I decided to do this, I wanted to make sure that the facts are out there.
Well, what kind of training do the volunteers who do the STAR program, how do you train the volunteers to go into the schools? I mean, it must be very difficult, not only the AIDS information, but then dealing with teenagers.
Well, we have had one volunteer training, we have one active volunteer class, and it's been kind of experimental. For the first training, I think it went pretty well, but after thorough observation, lots of note-taking, and many workshops, I have a better idea now of what needs to be added. It needs to be a little more comprehensive, but they've been troopers. They weren't given enough information to do what they do as well as they do now, and they're doing it.
So they bring back what they've gotten from the actual workshops and tell you what you need to put in.
Yes, and they help the others who need a little more work too. So I don't have to be with everyone at every time. They teach the other volunteers as well.
How did you go through the training? How long was the training? Was it, you saying 4 days?
3 days.
3 days?
It was 3 days, and I don't know, for some people they might have thought it was, just a very long day. I really enjoyed it. We had a lot of people from within APLA that came in and talked to us about AIDS 101, all the way to, different facts. Also, people coming in to teach us how to stand in front of a class and be able to teach a class and feel confident about talking to different people. And then also we did sort of a mock class where we got to see how it was like and the kind of questions you would probably get from the kids.
Now, how do you tell that it's working? I mean, obviously it's difficult to tell, barring following all of these kids home, to the drive-in and on Saturday to see what they do when they get home and like nobody's around.
But we attach little tracers to each child.
The little beeper, like LoJack or something. Barring that, how do you tell? I hear about evaluations. Do you ask them like post questions? How do you find out that this information is starting to get through?
I think from what I've been getting is that we get letters sometimes from the kids responding. Sometimes when you sit in the class and talk to the kids, sometimes there are kids out there who are just, not really, or you don't think are paying attention. And then you get a letter from them saying, hey, Ronnell, I was the one who was very quiet, but I've learned so much. I didn't realize that you could get HIV by doing this or this or this, and I've gotten a lot out of it. So, for them to say that and for them to feel empowered to be able to say to a partner, no, I know what is safe and what is not safe.
That's a special thing to get the letters from the students because we don't ask for the letters. Sometimes they just do it. And we might get a girl who says, you have no idea how important this is to me, and my friends don't have the same idea, but it is valuable. I lost my uncle or my father or my mother is infected or something. And they just really appreciate it. And I brought these two volunteers on the show because they have rated consistently among the highest in the student evaluations and the teacher evaluations that we get back at the end of each workshop.
So you're getting a good response also from the schools where you do this?
Well, one of the most valuable things I've had happen to me, I've seen the written evaluations that John gets back from the teachers because they are passed out after the workshop is done. But I've actually had students come up to me in private and say, I lost a cousin, I lost a father, I lost a relative, a friend, and thank you for being here. That you can't even put a number on that. And it's, you've reached them when a kid comes up because they don't want to speak out loud in class with all the peer pressure, and to hear someone come up to you and say, thanks for being here, I lost someone, I'm in a situation with someone I didn't know how to handle, thank you. And you can't evaluate that.
Well, it sounds like that what's happening now is, as opposed to going in and telling them about something that is foreign to them, is that AIDS is already impacting their lives. And you're just sort of opening the door for them to talk among themselves. The kids who could not come out to each other that my friend has AIDS or that they may be positive are now able to do so.
Right. And I think what I sort of emphasize in the classroom is there are some kids who will sit there or sit back and just say, you know what, I'm not having sex, I don't do drugs, but I tell them, you need this education still because you may have friends who are doing these things, and with this information, you can educate your friends. They're not as lucky as you are to be able to be in this class, and for us to give you this information, and even though you are either practicing safe sex or not having sex, then you are able to educate everyone else around you.
Or you encounter the opposite. We have the students who don't expect to live 10 or 15 years when symptoms might start if they get infected. So they're like, you know, if some chick's going to give it to me, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to use a condom if it's available. You know, after all of that, and you say, well, what can you say to that student except, do you have anyone that you care about in your life?
So you have to break through all of these issues as well. Pamela, how can people want to get involved? Who do they call?
Well, they call the Volunteer Resources Department and talk to Sonny Blanco or someone in there. The main number to call is 213-993-1376, and we'll set them up for volunteer orientation, and then I will send their applications on to John.
Well, thank you for being on the show, and I understand we have a video we're going to close with that you brought us.
Yes, Steve and I, Steve Eng, who produces this show as well, we got together and produced a volunteer documentary, and we were very fortunate to work with the singer Randy Crawford in her song All It Takes Is Love. John's in this video, among other volunteers of APLA and workers of APLA, and it's a very moving tribute to the fight against HIV and AIDS, and certainly the volunteers who are the true heroes in the fight against HIV and AIDS.
And here it is now. Thank you for watching AIDS Vision. Please get involved.
There's always lots to learn, and just as many reasons as to fight. You and me got choices, so listen to the voices inside us that say don't quit, don't cry.